1989, all having completed over 30 years of marriage, surpassing their pearl wedding anniversary. They will be together in conversation on Friday, the 28th of August. Various topics will be explored around marriage. They aim to encourage younger married couples and those considering marriage. There will also be an opportunity to ask some questions. So tune in and be inspired as they discuss marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, Mr. and Mrs. Pearls, we before me, us before I, together forever. Producing Pearls, 7 couples married in 1989, all having completed over 30 years of marriage, surpassing their pearl wedding anniversary. They will be together in conversation on Friday, the 28th of August. Various topics will be explored around marriage. They aim to encourage and those considering marriage. There will also be an opportunity to ask some questions. So tune in and be inspired as they discuss marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Sturge, and your hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Crossfield. Producing Pearls, we before me, together forever. Producing Pearls, 7 couples married in 1989, all having completed over 30 years of marriage, surpassing their pearl wedding anniversary. They will be together in conversation on Friday, the 28th of August. Various topics will be explored around marriage. They aim to encourage younger married couples and those considering marriage. There will also be an opportunity to ask some questions. So tune in and be inspired as they discuss marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, Mr. and Mrs. Doyley, Mr. and Mrs. Jarrett, Mr. and Mrs. Crossfield. Producing Pearls, we before me, us before I, together forever. Producing Pearls, 7 couples married in 1989, all having completed over 30 years of marriage, surpassing their pearl wedding anniversary. They will be together in conversation on Friday, the 28th of August. Various topics will be explored around marriage. They aim to encourage younger married couples and those considering marriage. There will also be an opportunity to ask some questions. So tune in and be inspired as they discuss marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Peters, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Sturge, and your hosts, Miss Crossfield. Producing Pearls, we before me, us before I, together forever. Producing Pearls, 7 couples married in 1989, all having completed over 30 years of marriage, surpassing their pearl wedding anniversary. They will be together in conversation on Friday, the 28th of August. Various topics will be explored around marriage. They aim to encourage younger married couples and those considering marriage. There will also be an opportunity to ask some questions. So tune in and be inspired as they discuss marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, Mr. and Mrs. Doyley, Mr. and Mrs. Jarrett, Mr. and Mrs. Peters, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Sturge, and your hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Crossfield. Producing Pearls, we before me, us before I, together forever. Producing Pearls, 7 couples married in 1989, all having completed over 30 years of marriage, surpassing their pearl wedding anniversary. They will be together in conversation on Friday, the 28th of August. Various topics will be explored around marriage. They aim to encourage younger married couples and those considering marriage. There will also be an opportunity to ask some questions. So tune in and be...
Yeah, I say first of its kind for us, and we're hoping that you will be blessed today. My name is Lloyd Crossfield, and this is my wife, Verona Crossfield. And we usually have an annual marriage seminar, but due to the pandemic, we could not have it this year. So we were considering other ways of doing something. And so my wife came up with this idea. So what was the idea?
Good evening, everyone. The idea was producing pearls. I was going for an early morning walk and I was just considering life as you do. just thinking about all the things, giving God thanks for various things in my life. And when I came to my marriage, I was thanking God for the 30 years that we had completed. And it just came to me that, it would be good if couples who got married around the same time as us were able to come together and share what we have learned. So the getting married, the having children, and the children now getting older and moving on, becoming independent themselves. So I just thought, well, there's so many couples that we know who have been married a really long time. So an easy way to kind of whittle it down is to think about the year we got married. And so we just got in touch with 10 couples that got married the same year as we did. And 7 of us have agreed to come together tonight just to share what we have gleaned and what we have learned and how we've managed to last all this time being married. Why is it called Producing Pearls? Because your 30th wedding anniversary is your pearl wedding anniversary. So it's called Producing Pearls. And we feel that we've gone through the process and we have come out being quite, precious stony. So Producing Pearls is also another reason why it works.
Yeah, so we all of the couples are on the program today. We all come from a place of faith. But we're really speaking about practical ways of dealing with marriage, going through marriage, and getting to the point that we have already got to. So every couple will introduce themselves with the same question. We'll start with Jarrett and which is interesting. How did we meet? So we've known each other
since we were before teen years.
Before teen years,
before teen years, early teen years.
Yeah, we were in the same fellowship, as it were, or we knew each other through church, should I say?
And concerts.
Yeah.
And concerts.
And then the more she saw me, the more she fell in love with me. I think that was it. No?
We were both musical, an amazing, phenomenal group, and I sang with my sisters and the Simpson sisters. So we kind of met up quite often, and it kind of took off from there. That's how we met. Now, courtship-wise, it was at the wedding of a friend of a couple who are friends of ours.
Mutual friends.
Yeah, we were at their wedding, and he saw me and decided.
I did.
And decided, oh, she's a bit of all right. And so it was after that we got talking.
Yeah,
and
we
I
had
think
a conversation.
we got talking, and we. You can't even say we went into courtship. We just kept talking. And the next thing, you were coming to see my parents.
I was coming to see your parents. So we got engaged. I think from the time that we started talking,
was
8 months.
September, October, November, December, 5 months, and then we were engaged.
Wow. Yeah.
But I'm still asking for him to marry me. But that's just something we need to work on.
We are married.
I'm waiting for my proposal.
Anyway, let's move on. So we have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, Donovan, Nicole, Natalie, and Miles. They are a blessing to us. On top of that, we also have 2 son-in-laws, and 2 grandchildren.
2 grandsons.
So 2 grandsons. And
lastly, what attracted us to each other?
Yeah, what attracted us to each other? I think you were very pretty.
Thank you.
So it was the look, which was very nice. But the more I got to know you, is the more that I realized your intellect and how much of a deep thinker that you were. And I was attracted to that.
Yeah, I was attracted to the fact that you were quiet. You were very quiet, but you were always present and you were always attentive. So that was something that made me think you were different to other people that were around, and it was just being inquisitive, really. And once we got talking and I got to know you, that's when I fell in love with you.
Oh, hey. Yeah, good. All right, look, we have to move on. It could get serious here.
Right, so we're going to do it. What we're going to do now, we're going to introduce the other couples in the order of when they got married. So we're going to start with the 5th of August, and it's Erid and Pearl Jarrett. They're going to introduce themselves now.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
So,
You're the storyteller, so if I start, you're going to say, you didn't give the details.
and you're going to miss out half the details.
Yes. Anyway.
Erin talks in bullet points.
Yes.
Right. So then I have to fill in the gaps. And then, because I say you haven't told them the bit about.
No, I haven't. Anyway.
So anyway, right. So I start then.
Yeah, you start.
So I'm Dr. Pearl Jarrett, and who are you?
I'm Dr. Erid Jarrett.
So we studied together. We do everything together. So we studied together. So we did our MBAs together.
Yeah.
And then we got our doctorates together.
Yeah.
And we used to play squash together when we met. Well, I used to play badminton and you used to play squash.
Yeah.
And then he taught me how to play squash. So we were very sporting when we met. Let's see. So how did we meet?
We met at Morris Cirillo School of Ministry in Birmingham. I was there with my cousin, Sandra Pitter, and then there was a mutual friend, Delroy, who introduced us because they were having prayer meeting in one of the rooms.
Well, before that, we just met in the lobby area. You don't remember that?
I don't remember that one.
Lads. Let me tell you this story. Let me tell you. What did I tell you? So anyway, this is how the story goes, right? So there's a group of girls, we were together, and then Erid was with a group of guys, including Delroy. And you lot was walking to this way, and I knew Delroy, and I was like, hi, Delroy. And they came over and they said, oh, that's it. And then Delroy introduced me to you and whoever else was there.
Whoever else.
And then, so we met. So that's where we met, in the lobby. And then, I don't know what I said. In fact, I didn't say anything.
You didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything.
We went to the prayer room.
And then we went somewhere and we prayed, and that's it. And then you said to somebody after that, I'm going to marry that girl.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Ask what I said. Well, I have to do like my mum like this. I don't know. I have no idea. What I said. I have no idea. All I know is that you saw something. I don't know what you saw. What did you see?
What I saw, I grew up in New Testament Church of God, and our youth ministry is very, very strict. And all of the people that I grew up with were all like my sisters. They didn't feel like somebody that I wanted to see as a future partner. So I was always going to be looking outside of my immediate church for somebody to get married. And back in our days, as you know, that could cause a lot of trouble. And I was from UT and Pearl was from the Apostolic Church.
Oh, God.
So you can imagine.
We were sweetly saved.
Some of the problems we had
sweetly saved.
between churches. But anyway, we got married. We courted for about 2 years.
Ooh, yeah, 2 years, yeah.
And that was another story.
Oh, God.
Because you're supposed to get married within 6 months.
That's right.
We decided 2 years, but the trend. We have 3 children, twin boys who are 27.
Yeah.
And we have a daughter who is 18.
18, going off to uni. If you can't see it, but there's a corner over there, it packed like this. And it's all her caroches that we're putting in the corner that we're going to try and squeeze into the car with all of us in about 2 weeks' time.
Take her to uni.
Take her off to university. And that's us.
That's us.
Okay. That's wonderful. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we got all the details, I believe. Yeah, so we're covered with that. Well done. All right. No, thank you. Next couple we have is Trevor and Pauline Doyley. They were married on the 12th of August. So please tell us how you met.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brother Trevor Doyley, and this is my beautiful wife, Minister Pauline Doyley. And we attend New Day Ministry, which our pastor is Pastor Simon Wallace.
Right, how did we meet? Well, I've always used to see the Doyleys brothers up and down, sort of singing on the circuit. So that's really where I sort of knew of the family and knew of the Doyley brothers. I actually saw him when he was 11 on Opportunity Knocks. And I remember calling my parents and saying to my parents, "Mum, come and look at these 4 boys. They're singing 'What Did John Do?' He went out in the wilderness." And we were so excited because it was gospel on the television, and not realizing that how many years later that I would actually meet this person. One of them, which was the youngest one at the time, I met him, and we sort of he contacted me through the Voice newspaper.
See, what I done, I didn't know her number. So what I done, I asked because my brother Errol, he knew. I think his name was I can't remember his name. Errol knew the guy's number, so I got him to get in touch with the guy, and he got the number for me. So when I rang her, she thought I was ringing her to talk about singing, really, but I had a different agenda. I actually came home from work. I was minding my own business, watching Coronation Street, and the phone rang, and on the other end of the phone was Trevor Doyley, and he said to me that he's been sort of like looking at me, watching me, and whatever, and he'd like to take me out. So I accepted the invitation on the date, and on the 8th of March, Tuesday.
1988, we went out on a date on a Tuesday. He took me up to London to the Trocadero, and then on Friday he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. So it was literally our courtship literally from the time that we went on our first date to the proposal actually was only 4 days.
Wow.
Why waste time? When I saw her, I knew she was the one. You see someone, I wouldn't recommend anybody else to do it.
Not my daughters.
I wouldn't be had if my daughter said to me she saw someone in 4 days. But when I saw her, I just knew. I used to see her in church, and she always used to be so quiet, sitting in the corner. She wasn't a loud person, just quiet. And that's the type of person I knew I wanted. I needed someone like that. And so, I packed up enough courage to ask her, and happily she said yes.
Yeah, but I would recommend that don't go down that road of 4 days if you're not 100% sure. But I was sure at the time, and I'm glad that 31 years later we're here.
Yeah. Soon enough.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Thank you guys very much. That's an amazing testament. 4 days. Wow. Okay. Who are we going to have next? We're going to have Daniel and Helen Brown, and they were married on the 9th of September.
Oh, wow.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Helen Brown, and this is my husband, Daniel Brown. And we pastor Faith Community Church in Bedford. And also we pastor Faith Community Church in Cambridge as well. And we've been pastoring for altogether 19 years. Cambridge, we've been pastoring for the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years now.
Since 2014.
6 years now then, yeah. So that's us.
So how did we meet? Well, quite an unusual one. I heard it. The story goes a little bit something like this. So we were in the same church organization, Bible Way organization, and we used to, as churches do, have their church anniversary services every Saturday. And you're either going up north or going down south and traveling all around to these different church anniversaries. And we're 10 years old. We're born in the same year. She says to her mum, "Do you think Daniel's going to be in Wellingborough at the church anniversary in Wellingborough?" And she says, "I think so, because he's usually out at every church anniversary service." So it was Valentine's Day. So 10 years old, she makes a Valentine's card. And she brings it to the anniversary service in Wellingborough. And she's sitting 2 rows in front of us. So she hands it to her mum. Her mum hands it to my mum in the middle of service. And my mum hands the card to me. And that's kind of how it started, really. Wow. And throughout the years, I just admired her beauty, obviously, but the fact that she just served quietly in the church. She was always serving, singing in the choirs, writing songs in the worship team. She even had her own group that she was singing, and they would sometimes obviously meet on the church circuit, but with her group, she would go to the American bases and sing. And I had my own band, so we would go to the American bases, and we were just seeing each other all the time. And we just knew that we were made for each other. And then we made it official around 15 years old.
Yeah, about sort of 15.
Yeah. And then what happened was my church split from the organization. So I went off independently with my family and the bishop. And then my father decided to come back to the organization and start a church back under the organization. And so as soon as I came back to Bible Way, I headed for her again.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then basically we got engaged.
I was on my 18th birthday. We got engaged, and then 10 months later we got married.
Wow.
Two beautiful daughters, Shanice and Romana. Shanice will be 30 next year. Romana she's 24, and we've got a lovely grandson, Lucas, who is 10.
Yeah.
And that's us.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So you guys got together on like Chinese whispers kind of thing. But thankfully the right message got to you, right? So
But I have to say, you are really fortunate that your mother's actually passed the note, because I'm sure my mother would have given me one look. No note would have come to me.
I know.
Oh, thank you guys. Okay, next we have Delroy and Caroline Smith, 9th of September as well.
Bless you. Well, hi everyone. I'm Pastor Delroy Smith, and this is my beautiful wife,
co-pastor Caroline Smith.
Excellent. We both are senior pastors for Restoration City Church, which is based in South Croydon. We've been there for a little while. How we met?
We worked in the same workplace together, but before that, we went to the same primary school together, so we knew of each other from primary school.
Yeah. So we met at the same workplace, and from there, everything progressed wonderfully. And we've been blessed with two beautiful children, Ariel, also known as Drummer I, he likes to be known, Ariel and Shara, and we are foster carers as well. We have a foster daughter with us. She's 12 years old and been with us for 5 months now. And our daughter-in-law.
And Marika, beautiful daughter-in-law.
Beautiful. That's us.
Excellent. That is wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's great. Next, we have Kent and Denise Peters, who were married on the 11th of November.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Kent, and
I'm Denise Peters.
That's correct. And yes, we were married on the 11th of the 11th at 11 a.m. Well, that's what it should have happened to. She did turn up 2 hours later. So we are different in that we were not in church at the time. We were not, how shall I put it? We were not saved. We were not in the Pentecostal faith as we are now. However, we do carry the titles now in the Pentecostal faith of Reverend, and we belong to the New Testament Assembly at its headquarters in Beechcroft Road in Tooting. We head up the marriage and relationship ministry, and I head up the media ministry, and my wife is multi-talented, and she has various other hats that she wears. How we met? Maybe I should ask her to do that one.
Yeah. Okay, so I am British, Nigerian, and Trinidadian, and at the time we were living in Nigeria, and my mother ran a hairdressing salon in the estate where we lived, and his mother, Veronica, used to come with the two younger brothers. So she used to come to get her hair done, and our brothers would be reading. And I was still at school. I was at secondary school. So I carried on. And one day this guy came and, went to see his mother. And I didn't know he existed, by the way. I've known his mother longer than I've known him. And he was fixing the car and said, "Oh, can you get me a piece of cloth?" And I gave him a piece of cloth, minding my own business. And as I was walking away, I could feel his eyes on my back. And I'm like, why is he looking at me? Who does he think he is? I was only 17. And I just sort of walked away. And, the next thing I know, I think it was a week or so later, my mother calls me and says, "Oh, there's somebody who wants to talk to you." I'm like, "What about?" "Oh, he's interested. He wants to go out with you." So he didn't ask me to go out with me. He went to my mother and asked her. And by the way, in Nigeria, you do not go out with a man's daughter. And I was the only daughter at the time, my father, without asking the father's permission. Otherwise, the cutlass is coming after you. So he had to go and ask my mother and my father to go out with me. Then I found out he was interested.
Oh.
Wow.
So that's how we started going out. And he was working and living in Nigeria at the time. So he's Trinidadian. And he was in Nigeria for 7 years. And that's how we met. Literally, it started our way.
But if I could just add to that, Denise says that she felt my eyes on her. But I want to put a different perspective on that. Now I know, because now I know the Holy Spirit. But the fact was that the first thing that actually I saw Denise as she was walking away was actually her heels. It was her feet. And as I said, I was not saved at the time, but now I could understand what the Holy Spirit was saying. He was speaking to me about her ankles and her feet. And there is a story about that, but we're not going to go into it right now. But that was what I saw. I was not, looking at her in that way. Now, what attracted us to each other? I just dealt with my part. Let her speak herself.
I think that for me, he was different from everybody else, I think, that I knew. Very level-headed, hardworking, very stable, very he knew who he was. So, and I think with time, and of course I knew his family, so I was already a member of the family, it wasn't a problem. So I sort of, I think it's sort of something that grew gradually, because I said I was still at school, I was sitting my final exams, and I think it just grew gradually over time. Because in 9 months we quoted in Nigeria before I came back to the UK.
Yes. And there is an age difference, because I am 6 years older than Denise. So when she said she was in school, she was obviously in secondary school at the time, and I was working.
That's what it is, a cradle snatcher.
But in terms of what attracted us to each other, from my perspective, it was it was not a flash in the pan. It was not an overnight thing. It was something that was gradual. As I kept visiting her mother's here salon with my mom, and also visiting home, it was something that just grew gradually.
Yeah.
The length of our courtship and engagement, that's an interesting one. April 1985 was when Denise and I first met. And we were married in November 1989. So that would be a 4-year courtship. I recall that when we first went to visit her family in 1987 in Trinidad, her late grandfather asked me That was the first question he asked me. He wanted to know how long it would be before we got married. And I said, well, we're thinking about another 4 years. Living in London is difficult. You have to get things together. He said, no, 2 years. And it turned out to be 2 years. It was 1989.
Okay, great.
We've been blessed with 4 beautiful children, 2 boys and 2 girls. And we have a son-in-law. Raphael is 29. Venita is coming up to 24. We have twins of boy and girl of 17. They're going to be 18 next week. And we have we've been blessed with a son called Rashad. That is our son-in-law. Yes, Reverend Rashad Gibbons. So we've been blessed in that way, and that's us. That's
excellent. Us. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, we're going to move on to Mark, lastly, and Sharon Sturge. They were married on the 26th of December.
Boxing Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they weren't boxing each other,
Second round.
Sorry.
That's a really bad joke.
You want to go?
Yeah. No, we weren't boxing. We actually met as teenagers, when we were teenagers at work, because I was working at the oil company, and then one day Mark came along. But at the time, I was an electrical technician, so trainee electrical technician, and I think he was in the final year of his electrical apprenticeship. And that's how we actually met each other at work as teenagers. Do you want to add something?
That's our story. I'm going to tell you the truth.
What to say?
First of all, I was working there when she arrived as a technician, so I keep telling her I taught her everything she knows. and secondly, in the sense that for me, she was different to all the ladies that I knew. I grew up in a house of with 9 other females in our home, so I had an appreciation for what a good lady looks like. And how they carry themselves and everything like that. But she pursued me vigorously too at work. And secondly, I knew if I went out with her that I would have to marry her. That was my personal deal with myself. Okay. And she invited me to 2 weddings. So when somebody invites you to weddings as their first date and your next date, you're in a dangerous space. When I could remember when we were coming back from the first wedding, I thought I'd try a thing and hold her hand. And she pulled her hand away and said, "Don't hold my hand, you're not my boyfriend." And so I knew then that I had to pluck up the courage and take things to the next level. So that's how we started. I had to make my intention known up front. Courtship, how long?
We courted for about 2 years. And
5?
Yeah, sorry, we courted for 5 hours together this week. I made 2 to the other side of the courtship. We courted for 5 years and we got engaged
year 2.
In year 2. But one of the things that happened is after we got engaged, he had to leave for London because he was coming back to London. At the time, I didn't know through all this time that he was actually born in London, because that's something when you live in the Caribbean, you tend to keep it quiet. A lot of people, because what they tend to think is that females, the culture was females or males tend to attach themselves to someone who has family outside or who's going to go away. So because of that, people tend to keep it very quiet. But for myself, I don't think that would have mattered because I grew up with my parents who always used to say, my dad especially used to say, if you can't make it in your own country, you can't make it anywhere else. So for me, it didn't really matter. So one of the things is that after we got engaged and he came back to London, I just continued life as basically normal, going to school and working. but at the same time thinking how I can probably develop myself just in case I might get the opportunity to come to London, because I would be able to find a job and work.
Just in case I behave myself.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping that would be the case. And
that's enough.
I want to say how we met. I want to say what attracted me to you.
Okay.
One of the things that attracted me to him is that he looked pleasant. When I first saw him, obviously because he came to the workplace, he kind of looked like a fairly pleasant, simple person.
Simple.
Yeah, fairly pleasant and simple. Yeah, because fairly happy. And the other thing also is that while I keep working with it, as we work together, he seemed to be very confident and quite straightforward, which means he's fairly honest and frank about things. Because coming from our culture, a lot of the times when you're in a relationship or you want to become a partner with somebody, a lot of times the boys used to tell the girls a lot of things that aren't true. So
I had integrity.
So one of the things is that I noticed he had a lot of integrity. So I thought, hang on. And I always say to myself, even before, that I always want somebody who would be respectful, honest, truthful. I don't want to be one of those, in different situations. So I always want to be somebody who was honest and respectful, basically.
And look what you've got. One handsome young son. You've got a son. So we've got one son, Mark Anthony, who's 20. And that's part of our story.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Thank you all for sharing your stories with us.
Okay, now we have introduced ourselves. You've met all the couples that are on the live for tonight. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to go into conversation, and hopefully as we discuss, you will glean some nuggets that you can either apply to your own marriages or think about to make some changes. And what I want to start with is a question that Mark and Sharon raised when we had a pre-conversation about starting with nothing. Do you want to expand on that, Mark?
If you insist.
I insist.
I think what Sharon said was right in the sense that we migrated back to the UK. So as soon as when I went back to Guyana, we got married. Coming back to the UK, literally, when we were exchanging vows and you say, and all my worldly goods I thee endow, what I had to offer was, I was a student at the time studying electrical engineering. I had a desk, I had an empty barrel, and I had a fridge that somebody gave me as part payment for an electrical job I did for them. And that was it. And I was hoping to have lots of stuff arranged and organized before Sharon came up to the UK, and that did not happen.
And if I only knew.
And that did not happen. So essentially, we had to start from scratch in terms of how we go about life. And I think what it offered us is the opportunity to really take on the challenge of marriage and relationship and building and developing together, really setting out what our priorities were and how we're going to make it happen. And one of the things we decided very early on was that we're not going to look at anybody else. We're not going to follow what other people are doing because their circumstances are totally different to ours. Yeah. And what it meant is that we would have to live simply and carefully in the sense that we rented a room in a house, and we lived there for 5 years because we wanted to save as much money as possible. We say, once we move from here, we're going to buy our own home. And we decided what percentage of our income that we would save. And we did that almost as religiously as paying your tithes and everything else. That was a commitment we made and didn't actually
deviate from that.
No, I think
we were very
committed to that as our single most important goal. Yeah. And lots of other things came along in that way. So I think that gave us a real opportunity to start thinking about building together.
Yeah. So
our
Mark,
circumstances.
Mark, I don't know if anybody else wants to come in now after this. Again, we obviously have to keep an eye on time. But so what would you say? Is there a counter argument in the sense that these days we would say people need to know, they need to have, like, for example, a man needs to have a job. He needs to make sure he has something to give to the woman. You actually had nothing. So would you say that that is something that is needful for a young man, for example, who wants to get married to a woman, to have all of these things in place before he gets married?
Well, we invested in each other's potential. Right. And we had a sense of it's going to get better. We're going to grow and develop. So in a sense, we came from the same electrical engineering background. And over time, both of us went on to study, did our degrees in electrical engineering. That was part of the bigger plan. So it all depends on if you're patient enough, if you're able to stick to the project, so to speak, and make sure that everybody is happy in that circumstance. You need to know your own personality. If your personality cannot countenance that, then it's going to be difficult.
Okay, very good point. And I think it's about the couples working it out as to what's going to work best for them. But you said about creating your own path, which is the important thing there. And you also spoke about being really bought into saving. So on that point, I'm going to invite Kent and Denise, if you talk to us about the importance of finance and managing finance in marriage.
Yes. From our experience, finance is it's one of the major stumbling blocks that if it's not prepared properly before you get married, or even at an early stage in your married life, it can cause huge obstacles going forward. Financially, I would always say, like, if we were to look back at our younger selves, or if I was giving advice to anyone contemplating marriage, even before getting engaged, is to get some financial knowledge, prepare for the things that will come up later in your married life, and do it before any children come up.
I think that one of the major problems in marriage is finance, and because I grew up in Africa, I think one of the things that is not really talked about in African, I think West Indian homes, is how to manage finances. It's not taught in school, and it's definitely not taught in the home. So I came from my father's house, and my father took care of everything. My parents took care of everything. So budgeting, or that just simply was not spoken about at all. So we started off, I think, very bad. We started off making very many mistakes that I think young people do make. So I would actually say that as people think of getting married, they got to have some wisdom. They got to get some knowledge. They got to get some understanding. They got to decide, well, are we going to have a joint account? Are we going to have separate accounts? What are our dreams? What is it? What is our vision? Like Trevor was saying about saving up. Really get some understanding about what finances actually is. Budgeting every month, making sure that your hands are not going deeper than your pocket is. I think that is very, very crucial, because it creates a lot of problems in marriage. So I definitely recommend getting some financial knowledge just for yourselves. Before you actually begin in marriage.
Yeah, thank you. Daniel, actually, what we wanted to do, just for everybody that's watching, we wanted to have like a flowing conversation with all of the mics unmuted, but it seems like that will cause a problem. So as you feel that you want to come in, couples, as Daniel has raised his hand, please just let us flow with that. So Daniel, go ahead.
one of the things that I've encouraged young people to do is that is really define the difference between ambition and working ambition. So ambition is the ability to dream, to imagine, and to desire things. But working ambition is slightly different. Working ambition has a plan, it has a structure, and it has an ethos to it. And I come across a lot of young people that have got a lot of ambition for doing things, you know, being a musician, being a singer, being all these different things. But, you know, they're not thinking about the fact that it might be, it won't be a steady income, or you've got to have, you know, you've got to spend a number of years building up your brand before you can start to establish your business, have incomes, constant income coming in, and so on. So I think it's really important to be able to distinguish between, you know, ambition is not enough. Working ambition is what we need to strive for. And I feel, you know, even with me and Helen, we had very little when we got married, but we had such a working ambition. And I think that really came from her mother, who was a one-parent family. And she was just a Trojan, absolute Trojan, bringing up 3 kids on her own and just completely a real soldier. My father, however, was that type of person who would go out to work. He was very strong. And what I saw as a young man growing up was that even though we didn't have a lot, whenever my father said he was going to do something, it wouldn't happen then. It would take a bit of time, but you're slowly seeing it materialize, you know, from moving from a rented accommodation to a council house, then to a house of our own, and then to a better house. You just saw that gradual. So I grew up with that mentality. There's this working ambition that's in play. And if I can develop that, so I took on the same attitude, you know, going from rented accommodation to council house and then to owning our own property. And every time I say, Helen, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, she'll be like, because Helen she is the most, she doesn't ask for anything. The 2 things she asks for is that I be on time and I be tidy. Honest to God, she's the most low maintenance. That's the word. And it's always been the case, you know, as long as we can cover the bills and so on and so forth. But because of my mentality and seeing my dad grow up, growing up, he's always had these visions, these plans, 5 years, 10 years. You see the house materialize in England, you see the house materialize in Jamaica. It may have taken 15 years, it may have taken 20 years, but that what's it called, working ambition.
Working ambition.
I wish we could talk about this forever, but that's such a good point. Thank you very much for that. So here's the order of what we have. We have Pearl, who's going to come in, and then we have Caroline, who's going to come in after that, and then Pauline after that. So go ahead, Pearl.
Yeah, just a quick note on that. On what you should have before you get married, because boy, I've heard this preached that, you know, the man must have this, he must have a job, he must have a house, he must have this and must have, and I'm telling you, it just, and then young people today as well, they expect, if you don't have this, you know, I'm not gonna look at him, and if you don't have that, and they've got this list, and I'm just thinking, what did we have? And at college. And he was a student. When I tell people, all right, let me tell you how bad it was. Eric was a student living at home with your mum. And then you were living in the nurse's home.
I was living in the nurse's home.
Then you was living in the nurse's home, and then when you graduated, you went back home. I owned my own flat at 21. I was the only one I knew. Nobody else I knew owned their place back then. But I'm just kind of like that. I'm kind of like a pioneer in lots of things. So I decided I was going to buy my own place. So I owned my own place. I had my own car. I had a very good job. So every time we went out, I would drive to him, to the nurse's home, and pick him up, and we would go out. And some people were like, why are you doing that? He ain't got no car. And I'm just like, I got the car. What's the problem? We ain't walking. It's raining. We're in the car. Doesn't it matter whose car it is? And then sometimes he would have money sometimes, and sometimes he wouldn't. I would always have money because I had a really good job. So sometimes I would say, babe, it's okay, I'll pay.
Yeah.
And he was like, and it's just like, oh, but let's go, it's half. And I knew if he paid half, he would not eat for the week. And I just thought to myself, this is a nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay. But when I tell people I picked him up and I paid for the meal, they look at me. They look at me.
Yeah.
But tested. But I'm just like, you have to understand.
Yeah.
Going back to what Pastor Daniel said, it's about that working ambition. I looked at him.
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm investing in you, Jed, because you, brother, and when you be something, I'm going to be there. And over the years, I'm telling you, our salaries have done this. Now, I could rock back and kick up my foot now and just watch daytime TV because he could afford to run the house on his own. But I had to see that and invest in him as a person. And too many people are looking at material things. And frankly, I think they've missed the point. Anyway,
absolutely. Yeah. Pearl, I was going to say, really, really good points. And to be quite honest, there are people that are blatantly have no ambition.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to know that. But when you see the potential, it is working with the potential.
It is working with the potential. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right, Pearl. Caroline, what did you want to add?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add that I'm from a family of 12, and my mum started me doing my bottom drawer. I don't know if you remember them days. Started me doing my bottom drawer from when I was 15. My first wage packet, she made me buy blankets, and I was vexed because I want to go out shopping. And so by the time I got married at 25, I had loads of stuff. But when we got married, one thing we put in place is we wouldn't spend over £50 without both of us agreeing. And so that's what worked for us. We tried to do a joint account. That didn't work for us. So we pay the bills. He does half, I do half. You have to find what works for you, but you have to be in agreement in you're buying something for the house, that you don't go and spend over £150, but there's no shopping in the house. You're buying material thing. It's about communicating and talking to each other and making sure that the bills are paid on time as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a very important point. And again, it comes back to what Mark said earlier, working out your own path. As long as you do work out a path, as long as it works for the two of you, that's the best way to go forward. So thank you for that, Caroline. Pauline?
Yeah, I just wanted to say about finances is that one of the most important things to do from the very beginning before you even get married is to not have any financial secrets. And what I mean by financial secrets is that sometimes people hide their financial past and they don't, they wait until when they enter into marriage before they divulge, you know, what kind of financial state they're in, and therefore it can set you on a path that could end up, you know, you could end up resenting each other. So I think it's a matter of being open about your finances. I was like Pearl. I owned my own property before I met Trevor, and so it was really sort of like a financial path that he came into with me. But I think it's about secrets, because a lot of couples find out much later on the enormity of some of the debts that some people have, and these days, maybe not so much back then, but nowadays, your credit rating really is all you have. It's your identity. And a lot of couples, my parents always said that I must hang my hat where I can reach it, and not on a ladder, not where I have to get a ladder to climb up to get it, because sometimes the ladder might not always able to get you up there because the steps break under the weight. So it really is about just being honest with each other and work it out before you get married. How you're going to arrange your finances, who's going to be the sort of like the organizer of the finances, who's better at it. I learned about my finances and dealing with finances when I was at school. We had a lesson on how to find your disposable income. and it was really about what do you do when you get paid? What do you do first? And I learned that at school. That was a lesson that I actually had at school, and they don't have those lessons anymore.
No.
But I think that as part of the Christian counselling, I think that we should finances should really be tackled as well. And it would help a lot of couples not to go down the road of sort of financial ruin.
Yeah.
And being satisfied, you know, as I heard Mark said earlier, that just being satisfied with the small things and then progressing onto the bigger things.
Yeah.
And now we can just go on holiday every year.
Yeah. But that, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the things that's mandatory when we're doing premarital counselling. We encourage the couples to do credit reports together so that you actually see what you're taking on. And we also make it clear that any debt you have with the council is not going to show on the Experian report. So you need to also look at that. But we do say to couples, you need to know what you're going into with no surprises coming later. So thank you for that. That was really good and valuable input.
One thing I wanted to address quickly, because I heard Pearl speaking about the way that the wages changed between herself and Jarrett. And now I'm going to come from a different point of view, from a man's point of view, like, because I had that we had that challenge that Verona, she at point her wage was higher than mine, and my ego stepped in because I then felt, you know, hey, wait a minute, I'm the man and I'm supposed to be earning X, Y, Z, and she's getting more than me. Has anybody ever experienced that kind of thing? Because I think there's a concept that the man has to be doing this or earning this and the woman earns less. Quickly, anybody want to say anything about that? Because I felt that was a real struggle for me, but now it that kind of thing is not. Mark, you want to say something?
I think most of my life, my wife has earned more than me. I had big titles, but very little salary.
For real, right? That's good.
Yeah. I mean, Sharon went on to be a senior signal design engineer, so she was earning well. We've never been uncomfortable with that arrangement because we operated on a common purse. You want to talk?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, yeah, we operated on a common purse. So in the sense that we share a bank accounts, and I mean, I trust her 100% with our finances and so forth. So we've never had we've never had a financial issue as part of our relationship because of the foundational things. And part of it is because a very wise guy who married us, a senior pastor, really tell us to spend the time looking at our finances and how to make sure that we make it work together, so that it's almost like a joint enterprise that we're entering into, and we should work in the interest of each other in that sense. And we took that to heart, and that worked.
Worked.
Which is really good. Really good. Thank you for that. Trevor?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm with Mark. See, when me and Pauline got married, from the very beginning, straight away, you know, everything was just down the middle. Our joint account, you know, there was no separations, no separated things. Everything was just done jointly. And even though Pauline she'd get paid better than me, but it never came into my mind. I never felt uncomfortable because everything was just down the line. Our wages just went together, and from then we just, you know, I think as long as you've got the trust in your partner, and you know that they're not going to do things out of the ordinary, you know, spend out all the money, you know, we just had such confidence in each other. So we were just down the line.
But I think the challenge we had was we've always had joint accounts. We've always shared our finances and been transparent with it. But I think the challenge we had was the way you were raised and what you had been told that you should be earning more. But you said to me that you felt you were called and that you were going to work for the church.
Yeah, I did.
I worked in industry, so my salary was far higher
it was
than yours.
It was.
But you actually we actually saw everything, but it's just the fact that you saw in the account, I was putting in, and you were putting in, and it's just the way that you were raised to think that you should be earning more, but you worked for the church.
I think, and it's taken time to kind of, I say taken time.
We got over it eventually, but it did cause friction at one point.
It caused friction, and I think that was to do with my own insecurities, my ego that I felt. But yeah, we're there now. We're there.
Yeah,
Ken, go ahead.
I said earlier that finance is a huge item in marriage if it is not handled properly, and if it is not prepared for properly. We have to go back to see that if in the cases where your wife earns more than you, in the case of ourselves, Denise has always earned more than me. But the point is that she is my helpmeet. And what that means is that we are going to do things down the line. Some couples say that they split things, they have joint accounts, it works for them, it works for us. We have to do that, especially bringing up 4 children. We had a lot of financial problems which we had to sort out. And that's when I keep speaking back about preparing financially for marriage, that's what I'm hinting at. When the liabilities came, Denise had more than me. Now, because we do things 50-50, it means that we were able to share those liabilities. Even to the point of when we were going through various litigations. So the point I'm making is that when you are doing things together, and trust is a big issue, you find that you're going through your valleys and you're coming out up the mountainside together. It always takes it back to what were your vows? What were your vows? For better, for worse, for richer, for in sickness and in health, till death do us part. So, yes, one may earn more than the other, and yes, the dynamics may change as the years go by, but because you're doing it together, you hold each other up.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Kent, because it really is remembering the vows that we make. I'm going to change the topic slightly, and I want to bring in Delroy at this point. Delroy, you spoke passionately when we had a pre-conversation about dealing with conflict and how to deal with it. So I just want you to share with those that are watching your nuggets on dealing with conflict.
Yeah, I was saying when we had our little chat that in a relationship, some people tend to avoid conflict because they see conflict as a negative. And I have a different opinion in regards to conflict. Conflict sometimes is when you have issues that has to be discussed backwards and forwards. Sometimes the way how you brought up, you might see things from one perspective, but your partner sees it from a different perspective. And of course, yes, we can just say, automatically the wife should submit to everything that the guy says, but the reality is that doesn't work. So what happens is when there's a conflict that's presented, I always say you shouldn't see that as my thoughts and my regard and how I was brought up, some of the mindsets that I have, and finding a common ground of how we can move forward. Because in certain relationships, you have certain patterns, certain cycles of how we do things. And so when a conflict comes, is a challenge of the cycle of what you're doing. And all it is that what you're doing out of conflict, how you resolve conflict, how you deal with conflict, is setting a new pattern. That's all it is. So if I always squeeze the toothpaste at the bottom, and you squeeze the toothpaste at the middle. What we have to do is find a new way of doing things. We have to find a way of how to move things forward. Sometimes when people see a couple having what we call disagreement or having conflict, people don't understand. They panic and they think, oh my goodness, their marriage is over because they have a conflict. And I actually don't, that is actually the wrong thing. Sometimes what happens in relationships, we bury things, and because we always want to be on perfect terms with each other, so we bury things without really discussing them so that it can be aired, so I can hear your point of view, you hear my point of view, and we can move forward together. So there are some skills and there are some tools to help in terms of how to resolve conflict, how to see conflict in a positive way and not negative.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. But I'm going to bring in another couple here. Okay, so they have said that after 4 days, the proposal came and they were married. Yeah. Now, I need to let you know that they have never, zero, argued. So Pauline and Trevor, tell us your secrets.
Go on, Trevor.
Yeah, I was thinking that, I've been married to Pauline for over 31 years now. And I just calculated the other day, and that's over 11,000, maybe 11,400 days. And I've never, ever raised my voice. Never. We have disagreed.
That's not our story.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I have never, ever raised my voice.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not to say that we don't have disagreements, but, I was brought up, in a way where my dad would always, he was so calm. If there was a disagreement, he would quell it. Just the way he spoke. I remember one time, a neighbour came to my house and he was shouting and raving. He was arguing, saying that us, the children, we were playing football outside. So he came to the front door and he was like in a rage. But the way my dad dealt with him, he was just so calm. And at the end of the argument, the man just had to walk away, and, everything was just calm. So I take that into consideration. I always think that if you have an argument, I always say the best thing to do is to communicate. So what we do, if we have a disagreement, I may be downstairs and Pauline might say something and I disagree. I don't agree with what she's saying. So what I do, I'll wait till she comes upstairs, and then we sit down in my room and I would say, P, the way you done that, I don't think it was, I just speak to her and ask her, tell her my point, and then she communicates back to me, and she'll say, well, I thought it was. And I think that's the best way to do it, because when you are shouting at someone, all you're doing is letting out your frustration at them, and they're not hearing what you're saying, because they're set up their back and all they're doing is defending themselves from your attack. So I think the best thing to do is to speak calmly. If you went into a church, you wouldn't shout at someone. So you respect that place. So what we do, we have a place where we go and sit down calmly. It just happens to be a bedroom where we go and sit down and we hold hands. I say, P, I love you, but the way you've done this, I wasn't feeling it. And that's how we deal with our situation. Never argue.
Yeah, wow. That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. Kent.
I've heard what Pastor Delroy has said about conflict resolution, and I've heard what Trevor has said about how he handles resolving conflicts. We come from a different perspective. Over the years, we've had a number of arguments.
Wow.
Yep.
This is Aquarius, and this is Taurus. We don't believe in the signs, but they do say that these people should never be together, but for the grace of God. So the point is that with conflict resolution, and that is something that we've built into the premarital program that we use at Tooting, you have to develop as a couple certain coping strategies.
Yeah.
There are some things that you are going to agree on.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that you will never agree on.
Yeah.
And there are certain things where there will be a degree of compromise on by each party to achieve an amicable solution. But I do support you, Trevor. Yes, in terms of, I can't say that I've never raised my voice. As I said, we've had a number of arguments over the 30 years that we've been married.
Mm.
What, as long as that does not come to physical blows, which it never has, and it never will.
Yeah.
Then, you know, we will achieve a median.
Yeah.
I think, can I just say, as the theme for today is pearls, and I was just thinking that a pearl is developed through irritation.
That's right.
So therefore, you can't get something precious unless there's some sort of, irritation on your, on your attitude, maybe your thinking, challenging your upbringing. Mm-hmm. We all come with different scripts. I'm African. The way I talk, the way I behave. Yeah, I am African. I'm Caribbean. When it comes to that side also. But so I come with a different personality. I describe myself as fire and he's the water. I literally am. But what I'm trying to say is that we are different personalities and we both handle things differently. And I always think of marriage as God transforming our attitudes, our character, our thinking, our personality to become more like him, because we are the bride of Christ. That's and right. I always think that in every experience that we have, even in the most difficult of situations, God works in the midst of that to change both people, that we may start very differently. In ourself, in our flesh, if the truth be told, because we are two different people coming together as one. But as we are working this this thing called marriage, as we are walking in this journey and just trusting God in it, we are both transformed. I'm sure we can all say none of us are the same as when we first got married.
That's right.
So I think that irritation is a good thing, as long as we put it in the hand of God and allow God to use those things to change us, that we can become more like Christ. Yeah. And I think that's what the marriage journey is all about, to create pearls.
Absolutely brilliant. Jarrett, we're going to come to you in a second. Pastor Daniel.
Daniel,
first,
then
Jarrett.
So real quickly, one of the things that we like to do when we're counseling couples, we don't like to talk a lot. We like to get the couples to do the work, because it's almost as though you take the pressure off them doing the work for themselves. And we find out, especially when it's young couples, they like to compete against one another, and they like to win. And when we were younger, I felt really good if I won. I really need to win. So one of the questions that I ask young couples when they come and they've got conflicts, they can't work it out, I ask the question, how do you think you can both win for the greater good, for the bigger picture? How can you both win? And they've never thought about that, because they're at such conflict, and they come to you and they say, well, I want to do this and she wants to do this, and I think this is a better way. So I says, right, I'm going to ask you one question, and it's going to be a very short counseling session. One question. How can you both win for the greater good? Go on, bye. See you later. And they go off and they come back. Yeah. And they were like, you know what? It forced them to work out, because at the end of the day, if I win and she loses, we both lose. And vice versa. So how can you both win? And I find that really helpful. How can you both win for the greater good?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thank you for that, Daniel. Because it is, if you both win, it's win-win. But if one person wins, then you both lose. So you're absolutely right. Jarrett, what did you want to say?
I'm going to sort of take you back to my mum. My mum used to say, she used to have this saying, teeth and tongue will meet.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think when we were growing up, at least in the church I grew up in, a lot of the couples and that went before us, they pretended that everything was always rosy.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They never allowed us to see their trouble, the troubled times. They always, presented the perfect outlook. The reality is that if you are in a marriage, conflict is going to be a part of that. Like any great relationship, whether it's marriage or friendship or school friendship or college, there are going to be occasions siblings fight. These things. The question is, what is your resolve? What is your resolve in this marriage? Is it that till death us do part, or is it when you don't do what I want, I'm gone, or the guy's gone down the pub, or it's what have you resolved to do? And one of the things that I think has been said by many of the couples here today is that you sit down and you plan something that is a common goal for both of you. And sometimes when people are younger, it is, I want to go this way and I want to go that way. And it's about, hold on, there's no reason why you can't achieve your goals and why I can't achieve my goals. And part of it, I think, for me, is investing in each other's dreams.
Yeah.
My job is to make Pearl great. And the Bible says, the Bible says that your wife is.
What does it say? What does it say?
It says is your helper. Okay. So for us to be whole, your partner's there to help you achieve your dream, because God brought us each here with a purpose. And my purpose isn't to be beaten by you or me to beat you. My purpose is whatever God said. So my thing is that whatever Pearl is doing, I'm the number one cheerleader.
I'll say to Aaron, all he's got left to do, I'm going to buy him some pom-poms, because all he has left to do is, give me a P, give me an E. I'm going to buy him some matching pom-poms, because he absolutely is my biggest cheerleader. There's one thing, though, he has to do better. He has to laugh more at my jokes. He don't laugh enough at my jokes.
Yeah, but Erin, tonight you haven't got the headphones, but we're not going to discuss that. We leave the headphones alone.
I love you so much.
Caroline, what did you want to add?
That was brilliant, Erin. Thank you for that, though. That was brilliant. Really, really good. Caroline?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we do have disagreements, but it's how you deal with them. You have to listen to each other and respect each other's opinion. You're not always going to agree. But one thing I find really hard is sometimes you've got to leave it there and deal with it another day, especially if you're going to go to church, you're going to minister, whatever. You need to be in the right frame of mind. And so sometimes you have to put it on hold till it's the right time to say, you know what, babes, we need to talk. And when men hear those words, it's like, oh no, they would rather go to the dentist than say, we need to talk.
True.
And so you have to find what works for you. But for me, I'm very cautious about, he's starting to go and minister the word, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. You know what, leave it alone. It doesn't have to be dealt with there and then, but it needs to be dealt with.
I think that's a really, I was actually thinking the same thing, Caroline. Thanks for that. And we're going to be taking a short break soon. But that was the thing, because I know personally, I've had challenges where we've actually been on the way to church. Literally, I'll be honest with everybody here. We've been on the way to church and ready for ministry, praise and worship, ready to preach, and argument has broken out in the car. And it's like, where
did that come from?
Where did that come from? Yeah, where did that come from? And we have been at loggerheads, but it's actually understanding the strategy of the enemy as well, and realizing what he tries to do to dissuade us from the call. I guess then that's on our lives as individuals, as a couple together. But we've had challenges. We've had those challenges. But at the end, do you know what as well? When you do go into church and you're able to minister in praise and worship or preach a message, even having done that, it's not being false. It's actually, you've had a real conflict, but you've still got to minister. But
it's with a repentant heart.
The power. Of what happens when you go, when you do praise and worship, or when you preach a message afterwards.
When you've done your consecration, afterwards it's like calm. Let's just discuss and see how it happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. But one thing that we have learned to do, and we do encourage younger couples to do, is when you're going into conflict, to speak from your perspective. Because what tends to happen is we'll say something like, you're not listening to me. And the minute you say that, the other person's back is up. But if you say, I don't feel like I'm being heard, you're saying the same thing, but it's just changing the wording so you're not accusing, but you're still getting them to understand how you're feeling. So it is sometimes not what we say, but the way we say it that we need. Because we're telling the truth, but it's just the way we say it. If it's too loud or if it's accusing, it's not going to be a good conversation. But if we just keep, like Trevor and Pauline do, you keep your voices at an even level, and then speak from how I'm feeling, how this is making me feeling the situation and what I think it should have been, then you're not pointing fingers, you're just saying, I think for us to be in a better place, we should be actually working through this in a different way. And if it comes to conflict like that, it actually appeases the situation, but you still get your points across without saying it's your fault, you did this and you did that, and if you didn't, you, because then the other person saying, well, you did this and you did this, and then year 5 comes up, courtship comes up, your parents come up, the kids come up, the cat, the dog, and everything is in the conversation because you've started pointing fingers. But if you're just speaking from, this is how I feel, this is how I'm feeling in this situation, this is what I think, this is what we could potentially, then it's a different conversation, but you're still discussing the problem. But
again, the Bible is our guideline. Let not the sun go down on our wrath when it's time for going to bed. We should make up.
And even if you haven't had a chance to discuss the issue, say we won't discuss it now, but we will come back to it. So you're still not where you want to be, but you're not going to bed angry with each other. You're just saying, okay, let's just leave it overnight, and then we do need to discuss it. Okay, we're going to be taking a 5-6 minute break, and then after this we are going to be taking questions. Whatever you have that you'd like us to answer, please put your questions in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, and we will do our best endeavor to answer your questions. In the interval, we're just going to play you a song. I have to actually give a shout out to hubby and the children, because in 3 days they recorded the song and put together a video. So that's Lloyd, Donovan, Nicole, Natalie, and our son Chris, Llewellyn Crossfield, and Miles playing the drum. They put the song together. I wrote the song last year for a wedding because I got fed up singing American songs. So I wrote my own love song. So we're going to play that for you now, and then we will come back after the song and we will be taking your questions. So put them in the comments now, and we will start with those questions after the break. See you in 5 minutes.
Cue.